Our guest today is the Executive Director of the Office of Emergency Management, OEMC. Prior to being named the Director of OEMC, he served as Acting Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Our guest today is a 29-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, serving in both enlisted and officer grades, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And on a side note, without any fanfare or headlines, he's a dedicated volunteer for the Special Olympics and our developmentally disabled brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Schenkel. Gary?
Well, this is a little bit interesting. First of all, I didn't expect this many people to be here, but I'm remiss on my part because I have never been here before. So I certainly want to thank the City Club, and I would recognize all the people that I work with, but Jay has already identified almost every one of them. I have to at least identify Lori Healy here again, and Megan Hart, who have been my cohorts, and we'll talk a little bit about NATO here in a little while. Certainly Mike Masters, who has been a partner from the very beginning. When I walked in the door, I think he took his spot maybe 30 days ahead of me. And we've been working literally on a daily basis ever since. And I have to recognize my Chief of Staff also, Ashley Van Ness, who wrote a wonderful, wonderful speech for me today, which I will not use. She always cringes when I do that, but as you said, to have fun, and I knew I was going to have fun when I walked in and I saw two of my old friends, Bill Gaynor and Jimmy Joyce, and I went, uh-oh. But that being said, I really do appreciate being here, and I also want to thank Mayor Emanuel for giving me the opportunity to be the director of the OEMC for the last 9 months. Although in dog years, I think that seems like about 900 years. But the 911 Center, or the OEMC, I think is many times misunderstood, or people just don't really realize what all happens over there. In most cities, counties, et cetera, the Homeland Security or the Office of Emergency Management is a very integral and extremely important piece of any city or county operation or state operation. But fortunately, you know, knock on wood, they don't get to exercise their abilities in many cases. They do a lot of planning, they prepare for the worst, and always hope for the best. Over at the OEMC, we house the 911 call center as well. So every call from every one of our 3 million constituents goes into the 911 center. At any one time, you'll find approximately 100 call takers and dispatchers on the floor over there, taking the calls from all over the city and dispatching police officers and firefighters. In addition to that, we also have the 311 Center. The 311 Center at any one time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can find anywhere from 20 to 30 more call takers over there, taking your city service requests, listening to complaints about everything, and diverting some of the calls over to the alternate response section of the Chicago Police Department, which is also housed there, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a second here. We also have the Office of Emergency Management. That is run by a gentleman by the name of Bill Schatz, a retired fire chief. And they do a lot of the public outreach and the interaction with the public and private sector, and do a fine job, I think, because I'm always being dragged out and told, hey, these people have been really good to us, and they are really wonderful people. And so they do a tremendous job. We also have the ISCN, and so I always screw this up, but it's the Internal Secure Communication Network. I'll explain a little bit about that in a second as well too, but that is truly a forgotten group that works over there, because they keep the fiber up that runs this entire city when it comes to our emergency communications platforms and the camera systems that you see. As I said, at any one time you'll find 100 people on the floor over there at the 911 Center. And I can tell you that nobody calls us to wish us happy birthday. Nobody calls us with good news. Nobody says, hey, you know, how's your day going or anything like that. So consequently, these men and women who work on the floor over there and take the calls from the people in distress do a fabulous job. And I cannot say enough for them. I get the opportunity on a rare occasion to just kind of walk around and listen to the people on the floor. And to listen to the one-sided conversations is really interesting, because you can see it in their faces, but you can also hear in their responses back to the other individuals who are calling. In many cases, it's a very dire situation. It is literally a life or death situation. And they provide that calming influence. They're able to keep this person on the line and start dispatching the appropriate, whether it be police or fire or emergency services. And other times you can see that they are just trying, yes, ma'am, I know your son doesn't want to go to school this morning, but he's a little bit out of our lane for taking care of it. And that's what goes on all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 5.2 million calls a year go into the 911 center. It's not much different over at the 311 side of the house. 311, nobody calls and says, you know, I'd really like to thank you for fixing that pothole. I said, maybe not so much. But they again, very much on the one-sided conversations, you can hear the calming effect, saying, look, we're looking into it, we can deal with the different city service, we'll give you these directions, whatever it may be. And they just do a tremendous job. And without those people, I'm telling you that you know, we would be in dire straits here in the city, because they are the force multiplier, and I'll use that term frequently as I talk today, because I still think the people are the key to success in any of these organizations. This not to say that people is the only thing that we do over there, because obviously it is a techno whiz-bang center that I think many of you, some of you in this audience, have even either installed, maintained, or helped assist in the development of it. We're the first 911 call center to actually offer the ability for callers to send photos of incidents coming over the net. We are far ahead of many other cities when it comes to that. Give you an idea of the success of the 311 center that has been incorporated in 1999, I believe it was. My wonderful chief of staff, Ashley, there gave me some great stats here. There was a storm evidently here in 1997 before my arrival, and there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 calls that were called into the 911 center, saying, hey, you know, we got trees down, we got lightning, we got everything else, and oh, by the way, I'm being robbed and my car's been stolen. After 311 was installed, a second set went in, or a second set of callers went in, and they got 32,000 calls over at the 311 center and only 19,000 calls over at the 911 side of the house, which was a tremendous burden off the emergency services side. On a daily basis, we get about 15,000 calls on the 911 side, and as I said earlier, 5.2 million on 911. Well, 311 gets about 4.6 or 4.4 million calls every year. And that has steadily increased approximately 20% every year for the last 5 years, and it looks like we're on track to do that again for this year. In addition to that, we also add the Traffic Management Authority, or as I heard people call them before I left here, was the glowworms, but the people who go out there and direct traffic. And last summer we took an entirely different approach to this, and fortunately, because we are so intrinsically tied to CDOT and special events and things, that it keeps us involved in what goes on around the city, but it allows us to actually tactically and operationally place these traffic aids out in appropriate places in targeted areas, rather than just set them in one place for 8 hours a day and getting about 4 hours worth of satisfactory work, and not because they weren't doing it, because the traffic wasn't there. If we use part-timers like we do now, we've got about 750 on staff. We're able to focus them in on services, whether it be a construction project, a situation that may require additional traffic aids or whatever, but that's been working out real good. One of the things that we did since I got here is when I walked in the door, I said, okay, how does this place work? And I'll give you a little bit about that later too, but I saw all these guys in red suits, and I saw these guys in blue suits. And I said, well, what's the deal here? Well, we do the police stuff, and well, we do the fire stuff, and then there's another group over here that does other stuff. Well, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but since we all work in this building, wouldn't it be better if we all kind of put our heads together and did one thing, maybe a little better than three things on kind of average? So we resurrected what we call the PSIT, or the Public Safety Public Safety. Come on, Chief. Information Technology Group. Excuse me. Yeah, the PSI. I'm so used to using the acronyms. I'm on my 5th set now, from the Marines and police and everybody else. PSIT. Okay. That being said, we have a very strong commander over there from the Chicago Police Department who heads that division. And within that division, we also have the infrastructure group, which is the ISCN, run by Ruben Madrigal, who I know has a tremendous reputation with the CTA and has just done a tremendous job over with us with the ISCN. We also have development group under Yilmaz Halak, who comes from fire. But again, as I said, we consolidated this group, and we're getting much more out of it than we were in the secular or parochial groups. In addition to that, we're trying to look for more consolidation. We have Captain Marty Ryzik over there, who runs our radio program. And just recently, in addition to the somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 public safety radios, we've just taken on the Department of General Services, or former Department of General Services, now 2FM. We've taken over their radios, and our goal is to incorporate and build a single trunking line system for our radios throughout the entire city, with the ability to fence off the public safety networks. For the first time in at least that anyone can remember at the OEMC, we've also taken a comprehensive look at the technology life cycle. I think everybody in this room knows that by the time you go out and buy your new computer, it's probably 6 months out of date already. There is a great deal of technology in this city, and the ability to truly track and maintain and replace that when necessary just wasn't there, not at least in a comprehensive or consolidated form. So the PSIT group under Commander Lewin has done a tremendous job putting all that together to where we can now project out to 5 years and beyond as to what our life cycle replacement anticipation is, and we can attach cost to that, look for cost savings through consolidation, and again, we're making some progress in that area. We've reduced costs by combining many of our contracts. We just recently signed an agreement with Cook County, thanks to Mike and many of the folks, and Aaron Lavin, who I think was going to be here. So we can share contracts between the city and the county, especially when it comes into camera installation and purchases and things. Without divulging all kinds of weird ideas about cameras and everything like that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, because we have the most robust camera network in the entire United States. We have access to about 22,000 cameras in this city. And at the heart of that is our OVS system, supported by the Department of Homeland Security, but it's called Operation Virtual Shield. It consists of a said number of cameras that is really the core function of our camera system and our ability to observe things around the city. And again, I would use that term force multiplier that I used before. By having a camera in key locations and having multiple cameras that complement each other, we are able to assist first responders, public safety individuals, in their ability to function and do their jobs. It also saves us, makes us more efficient, because if we get a call, there's a fire at 12345 Jones Street or whatever, and we have a camera there, we can be sending that information directly to that firefighter who is en route and say, maybe not, or hey, this is really big, and start facilitating the addition of additional public or first responders. This system, as I said, is 22,000 strong, and although we don't own most of that, what we do is, again, through the hard work of Ruben Madrigal and John Lewin, and certainly the law department, we sign a lot of MOUs and partner with our private sector people who have cameras, and they've assisted us tremendously throughout this entire endeavor. And we continue to add more and more people into that network. The nice thing about going back to the ISCN, the Internal Secure Communication Network, is that we own the fiber. And that's becoming more and more and more important as you see the multiple incidents of hacking around the world, the interruption of services, the interruption of communication. By owning our own fiber and protecting that fiber, we are far less susceptible than many other cities might be. And it's really a tremendous benefit, rather, and another force multiplier as we move farther along. Now, how do we pay for all this stuff? It ain't cheap, as you well know. The lifeblood, I guess, of most emergency management operations is grant funding. And grant funding, having just come from the federal government, I can tell you, is drying up. It's not drying up as fast as I thought it was, but it's drying up exponentially year by year. Fortunately, again, I've got to give Mike some more credit here. When he and I came in, so did the director of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency down in Springfield. And so we had no history, and we knew that the state was broke, the county was broke, and the city was broke. And we looked for opportunities through these grants to partner and take a strategic approach to the way that we spend money, in particular on technology and public safety equipment. In training, in things that were common to all of us, we're able to get more efficiencies, operate, much more effectively, through partnering on these grants that are few and far between right now. Just give you a quick picture. We were one of the few cities that was able to maintain for the 2011 and 2012 Urban Area Security Initiative grant, and in 2013. There will be no more individual grants given out. You may have already read about this, because I know if you're in the technology industry, you're very attuned to this. But there will just be single block grants coming to states, and they'll be competitive in nature. The good thing about that is, because of the partnerships that we've developed with Cook County, with the state, and internal to the city, that we're able to provide a strategic plan, an operational concept that will withstand the scrutiny of the federal government and put us in good stead, we hope, for even more money in the future, but certainly to sustain at least what we've got going for us so far. Jay gave you a brief introduction. One of my other friends out here, Dave Bayless, said, you ought to talk a little bit about yourself, which I'm not real good at, but it might give you an idea of how I got to here, which is pretty surprising. I was just a kid, I would say a punk kid, it's probably more appropriate, who joined the Marines for 2 years and got out 29 years and 5 months later, because I didn't want to be called a lifer by doing 30 years. But actually that worked out extremely well for me, because I was in the infantry. I was like, okay, go up the hill, okay, go down the hill. But the last couple of years, I was the operations officer for the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. And at that time, Commandant Krulak had this vision. He said, the Marines have been going up the hill and down the hill forever and ever, and landing from the sea and all this kind of stuff. Let's take a look at the future. Let's think strategically. And I learned a lot from what the Commandant was, I was fortunate to be placed in his operation there. Like most of us, we're dealing with operations of our businesses, our services, whatever it may be, on a daily basis, and we don't have the time to step back and say, okay, this is good for today, but what are we going to do 5 years from now? What are we going to do 10 years from now? We just don't have that. Well, the Marine Corps was pretty smart, at least the Commandant at that time was, and he pulled almost 200 of us out. Now, that's, for those of you not in the military, that's like a rifle company. That's a lot. That's a lot of folks. He said, I'm going to pull this out of hide and I'm going to look to the future. And we're going to look for the relevancy of the Marine Corps in the 21st century. We're going to come from the sea because that's our lifeblood. We are soldiers of the sea. We're partnered to the Navy. And everywhere we go, we're going to go on big, great boats and we're going to go do, you know, whatever the president's will is. And consequently, we said, okay, there's going to be this asymmetrical threat out there. They're going to be difficult to find because they're going to embed themselves into cities, and we're going to have these superior command and control abilities, you know, to find out, seek, and destroy these people. Sounds a little gloomy right there, but the reality is, you know, we developed this IMAX system, an Integrated Marine Multi-Agent Command and Control System. I told you I had all these acronyms. Lo and behold, is very similar to what we are doing today all over the United States. And we're kind of taking that concept farther. And the reason I got out of the Marine Corps at the time was some guy named Terry Hillard called me up. And he said, hey, I saw what you were doing, because we were doing some experimentation out in San Francisco on urban combat, command and control, communications. Ended up at the Chicago Police Department, got to know them extremely well, had the opportunity to serve there 4 years, then went to the dark side on the federal side. Again, kind of out of my lane, I kept thinking, you know, I better going up and down those hills and trying to think strategically and develop concepts for security and commerce and all this stuff to flow. And was fortunate enough to become the director of the Federal Protective Service. We had 9,000 buildings in 50 territories, 6 protectorates, and I'm sorry, 50 states, 6 territories and protectorates. And the sun never set on my empire, so I was getting calls all night from Guam and Saipan, and you probably didn't even know we had courthouses there, but we do. Again, I'm pulling these strings, you know, of communication, control, operational concepts. And a friend of a friend called me up one day and said, do you know Rahm Emanuel? And I said, only, you know, I see him on TV kind of thing. So I went out and met him, and he said, what would be your concept for the OEMC? And I was very honest. I said, well, sir, you know, I hadn't been in there since 2004, and this was 2011 that we met. And he said, well, if everything was perfect, go home and write me a paper and bring it back. Can't be more than a page. And I go, I like this guy already because he knows that I write with a crayon, and I don't have a lot of thought. I'm not real deep. You know, I'm kind of beer and bologna, not caviar and champagne. So I came up with this idea. I said, well, having worked with all these cities, again, you know, with the Marines and doing the up and down the hill and everything, I say, you know, we're so dependent on everything that happens within a city. We can't just fence off police and fire. We need to integrate things. And we need to depend on each other and identify those dependencies, look for efficiencies, and become more effective. So I come to the OEMC, and lo and behold, Tommy Byrne is standing there, and he goes, hey, how you doing? And we go into this CIC. Now I'm going to hit you with a lot of C's here, because there's a string to this. So I wrote up this concept paper to the then hopeful mayor, and say, you know, if we can integrate the city operations in with the public safety side of the house and have clear visibility when emergencies come, we can just escalate. We know each other. We're not meeting each other on, as we used to say in the Marines, you know, in the foxhole for the first time in the middle of the firefight. And the good thing was, I love Chicago. You know, I came back here, and I just came back here. When I came here, I mean, this became home. I grew up in St. Louis, but this became home. I really wanted to get back here. So I see Tommy Byrne standing there in the OEMC, and come to find out that we have not only the 911 floor, but right next to that we have an operations center. And that operations center brings in those 22,000 cameras, our Operation Virtual Seal, and all the other technologies and abilities. Well, right next to that is another big room, and this is where Tommy's at. And not only Tommy, but 2FM is in there, Water Department is in there, all the city services are right there in the OEMC. And on the other side of that, we have the emergency operations centers. So you got the EOC, CIC, OC, and the OEMC. And there'll be a test after this. But there's got to be a better way to do this. So we kind of took that operational concept that I had thrown at the mayor, and we looked at some gaps, and we've been combining operations a lot, because one of the things I think that really struck home was last July, I think it was, we had a storm. I don't know if you even remember it, but we had a storm, I think it was late in July, and we lost 2,900 power lines in about an hour and 20 minutes. And that was a lift. We had the fire department out there clearing debris. Certainly Tom Burns' guys were out there just breaking their necks, clearing debris, trying to get to power lines. ComEd was in the OEMC with us, and we're trying to line up the power lines. Trying to think, there was another group knocking down power lines or knocking down trees or whatever so we could get to it. Well, then we come to find out we had police officers sitting on down power lines. This is not good. You know, police officers are supposed to be out there doing police things. You know, streets and sand guys should be doing streets and sand stuff. ComEd should be doing ComEd. So we didn't have a comprehensive picture of what we were, how to really approach this situation. So we got the old paper map out, and Tommy and his guys and a bunch of my guys, and we all sat in the back room, and we came up with kind of a comprehensive approach. And we were so short, we actually reached out to Cook County. And again, Mike stood up to the plate, sent us some more crews. So, I mean, we have all these people out here cutting down trees and pulling power lines and everything like that. But it took us about a day to get kind of this plan to put it together, and we did it with a paper map. And so afterwards we said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a common operating picture, old military term there. In other words, a map that we could all be working off of that was possibly interactive, certainly electronic, and if I'm looking at it at OEMC, Tommy could look at it in his office over at the City Hall. And for that matter, if Jimmy Joyce was still the fire commissioner, he could be sitting there in his office looking at the same thing. So when I said, hey, if you look over on Main Street and you go 4 blocks left, we're all looking at the same thing. So had a whole bunch of meetings, and God bless every commissioner in the city of Chicago, because they're probably sick of me, the way I keep dragging them over there and keep talking about this comprehensive plan and this collaboration, cooperation idea and everything. Lo and behold, within a couple of weeks, we're going to have that common operating picture. We've got most of the vehicles in the city GPSed up, and we'll be able to actually comprehensively and effectively approach situations on a daily basis, whereas when an emergency comes, it may not even be one. Let's hope it's not. It may be just the fact that we'll be able to communicate better, look at that common operating picture, and be able to integrate all those efforts and bring it all together under not only one roof, but anybody's roof, and be able to work that way. Speaking of integration and collaboration, this is where I have to move into my uncomfortable zone, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the Nato Conference. One nice thing about the Nato Conference, before I go into it, is that it has certainly served as an impetus to get multiple people and multiple agencies to work together and accelerate a lot of good ideas that I think a lot of people had, but this kind of gave us the excuse to get on it and move forward in a much faster way and complete a lot of things, and it's been working extremely well. NATO Conference is coming, as you probably hear on the news every single day. It's coming in late May, the 20th and 21st, Sunday and Monday. You've also heard that the G8 has now been moved to Camp David, Maryland, which doesn't really mean a lot to us, because 7 of the G8 will be coming here Saturday afternoon to join the NATO Conference. And if President Putin and President Obama can solve nuclear proliferation, we'll have 8 for 8, but I don't think we're going to do that in 24 hours. It's been a few years we haven't made that that stride yet. So, but 7 of the 8 will be coming here. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the reality is this is an opportunity for the city that is incomprehensible. I mean, it really and truly is. If we would have gotten the Olympics, if we'd been fortunate enough to get the Olympics, you know, we'd have had the whole world's eyes on us. And that had been several weeks long, and we'd be building multi-billion-dollar stadiums and all the other stuff. The good news is we're here for a few days in late May, and we're going to have about 7,500 dignitaries and delegates from well over 50 countries. Could be as many as 70 or 80 different countries represented. But we're also going to have somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 members of the press here from all over the world. And they're going to be showcasing Chicago, Illinois. And I can tell you, having lived overseas for 30 years of my life, everybody knows LA and San Francisco, and everybody knows New York, and they think they're like a block apart. If you're in the Philippines or Thailand or Holland or somewhere else, they kind of miss Chicago. This is our opportunity to shine. And there's been way too much negativity on this and not enough positive look at this opportunity. Ms. Healy, I know, is going to talk to you in a couple of weeks and really give you the great details, but she has got just a tremendous menu of things that are going to be incorporated into this. I'll tell you a little bit about that because I don't know a whole lot of all the details that she's got going on, but I can tell you that because of the NATO conference coming here, that this has been designated as a National Spatial Security event, an NSSE. This is the 5th NSSE that I've been involved with. This is the first one I've been involved with as a non-Fed. And these are pretty cool. I mean, they're a lot of fun. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit disruptive on the traffic side of the house, but again, you're going to get the attention of the entire world right here on the city of Chicago. You're going to get to identify with the diversity of our neighborhoods, the different cultures, the wonderful things we have to offer here, and all this is going to be about the size of a small trade show. Because if you add up the 7,500 delegates, the 2,500 press people, and a few other people here and there, maybe 10, 15,000. So don't run away, don't stay home. The city is open for business. The city is way open for business, and this is the opportunity to project that capability. I know that when we started this, and once it was designated as a National Spatial Security event, that says that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Secret Service, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency are technically the leads. We all know who the lead is here, and it's Mayor Rahm Emanuel. He had the foresight to say, you know what, this is really an opportunity, so I'm going to form a host committee. And fortunately, he was able to find Lori Healy to head that up, and her able-bodied assistant, Megan Hart. And I'll tell you, while I'm kind of doing all the behind-the-scenes, pulling the strings together, they are doing a fabulous job of really projecting the positive side of this event, and it is entirely positive. That being said, while the host committee is working on musical events, international sporting events, all the kinds of things that really show off the diversity of this city and the things that we have to offer. We've got a good, clear chain of command, if you will, to establish this. I talked to Lori. Lori tells me what the mayor wants. I deal with the Department of Homeland Security, Cook County, Mike Masters, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency out in Springfield, that being John Mumpkin, Chicago Police Department doing a fabulous job working with the Secret Service on the security side of the house, and we're dealing with everybody else putting the rest of it all together. I think I actually had a slide I should have put up there. I promised I wasn't going to give you death by PowerPoint, but that's kind of the way it's set up. Functionally, that's the way it's set up. It's working pretty well. As you can imagine, whenever you got this many shrimp in one corral, it's a little bit to keep them all in there. But we're getting there, and we've got about a month and a half to go, and I can promise you this is going to be a very positive event. I talked about the traffic congestion, which is really the only challenge I think that we're going to have. But again, remember that this is on a Sunday and a Monday. And the Secret Service has been extremely cooperative in identifying, rolling road closures as opposed to blocking down entire streets all the time. They're very good about restricting and constricting their security zones. And if you're not traveling down Lakeshore Drive on Sunday afternoon or Monday afternoon when everybody's leaving, you probably won't even notice it, other than hopefully some of the magnificent flair that's going to go along with this, the decoration of the city, the multiple people that'll be representing their home countries running around and hopefully spending lots and lots of money, making great deals to come back and doing all those kinds of things. To get that information out, I know people are concerned, and never confuse a good rumor with the truth in the press. So fortunately, we've got the Chicago NATO Host Committee. I think that'll be up next week. Oh, this afternoon. This afternoon. Drum roll, please. And on top of that, there is obvious concern because of much of the press on the private sector side. And I'll be very frank with you. We were getting run ragged trying to reach out to all of our private partners who are extremely important to us. We have always had a very good relationship with the private sector, the business sector, even the public sector outside of the public safety side of the house. That being said, Lori was fortunate enough to be able to contract with Hillard Hines. You probably recognize that first name. And Arnett Hines, Terry's partner, retired Secret Service agent, they are establishing the Business Communication Center. And they are taking a great deal of the load off of us trying to communicate with the private sector. They'll have a business information group set up. They will be the primary point of contact for all business private sector parties prior to, during, and shortly after the event. And excuse me, they'll leave a legacy of cooperation and coordination and communication that we can use for other events in the city. Because after 2,500 press people come here and show what a fabulous city this is, we'll be inundated with trade shows and conventions and all kinds of great business opportunities. We're going to be communicating with the public not only on the host website, where we'll be putting alternate traffic strategies and routes and things, and plus all of the events on there. Notify Chicago. I have talked to no less than 1,000 different businesses, possibly 2,000 different businesses, and encourage them all to encourage all of their employees to go to the city's website and sign up for Notify Chicago. It's free. It's an automatic notification that comes to your iPhone, your BlackBerry, it even calls you and leaves you a voicemail and says, hey, avoid Lakeshore Drive between 27th Street and Roosevelt Road. I mean, that quick. And we don't have that many people signing up. So if you go out and you tell 10 people, and they tell 10 people, and they tell 10 people, well, if all these people will be actually getting the communication about this event in a very timely manner. And this isn't just for NATO. I mean, this is for every event that we do in this city. It's a very positive and very long-lasting thing. In addition to that, one of the concerns, again, if you are a business owner or you are a resident in a multi-tenant building, we have the Chicago's Public-Private Partnership, the CP3. It is owned by the Chicago Police Department. It is only accessible by the OEMC, the fire department, and the police department. And your business, your building can, what we say is, opt into that and provide emergency service information. Anything from points of contact for credentialing, allowing people into the building, where your building engineer is, to actual floor plans, escape routes, emergency operations plans, anything that you want to put in there. And it truly facilitates, emergency response and cooperation with the public safety side of the house. And again, this isn't just because of NATO. This is something that's a very positive thing and long-lasting, goes ad infinitum. So I think I've probably bored you enough by now to hopefully that I will have stimulated a question or two, which I'm probably better off at answering questions than I am trying to speak.
We have a TFQ period now. That's time for questions.
That's good.
Make sure you include an acronym, or else I just simply can't read it. It's just not against the rules. Are any of these questions? I mean, if we had some of my students here, there'd be a lot of questions. We'd also have a mini riot. So we'll leave those aside. Any questions at all? Cowards die. Oh. From Joy Saxon, always counter for a question. As the proposed cameras around the schools part of your jurisdiction?
Are you talking about the traffic cameras?
Yes.
No, we have nothing to do with the traffic cameras. Take that up with someone else.
That's right. By the way, there's no truth to the rumor, and I think Ms. Healy can verify this, that we are not going to replace Hamburg and Amsterdam as the capital for the red light district. There is just no truth to that rumor. I want to squash it right now. Any other questions? Seeing none, you got, don't come around, wait, just, come on, now you're in a hurry. Big round of applause, we got some gifts. A mug.